Hello, this is wmpyr. I received a question. It was in Japanese, so I translated, and yeah, I'd like to share it for my English-speaking audience. So the first one pretty much is, how do you hit in Escrima, right? And this question was referring to my empty hand uh, video. But look, even if empty hand is your interest and that's your goal, and in a real life self defense situation, you don't want to use weapons, let's say, because you could land in legal mess. So maybe you just want to do a screama for empty hand. Okay, that's fine. It's your prerogative. Still, though, our main thing comes from the sticks. Okay, so our skill set, the core skill set comes from this. So let this teach you and build a foundation. So, like I said, in a real life situation, you have no intention of using this, or you probably won't even have it with you. That's fine, but it still comes from this. So start with this. Make sure that you do this. And personally, I think for Filipino martial arts, Escrima Arnis, this is also very, very important, which is the blade. It doesn't have to be a knife, but a blade. I think it is a blade art. So blade is real important as well. So I recommend stick training and blade training. And by blade, training knife, definitely don't start off with a real blade. And from there, we go into empty hands. So I would say make sure you get that first, okay? Next, where do you hit in Escrima? So think of a baseball bat, all right? It's going to be the thickest part of the baseball bat, which is towards the end over here, okay? This is the area that we want to be focused on hitting with. The number 2 area, I would say, is right here, the bottom part of the stick. And then if I had to pick a number 3, I would think the top part of the stick. So those are the 3 main. But me personally, I teach everything. So I teach, this area and also this area and this area as well. Because remember, this comes from or has a very strong influence from European fencing. And think of the European swords. They all have like this, mega guard right here that they do use in combat as well. So I'd say do not neglect the fist as well. But anyway, the whole thing. But you don't want to just train it as the whole thing. You want to make sure you compartmentalize, divide it, and work each one separately, and then you can put it together. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. The next one is where do you target in Escrima? So the where do I actually target comes from the angles of attack. So when you learn the angles of attack, which is our forms, in the forms they'll teach it to you. They'll teach you like hit the temple, hit the throat, or go for the neck, or whatever. They tell you exactly where to hit. That being said, there's a more broad idea. And the broad idea is when you're using an impact weapon, you're going to aim. So impact weapon is a hard weapon. So if you're using something like that, you're aiming for hard bone area where bone is close to the skin. Okay, so the hard areas on the human body. So this could be the shoulder, this could be the skull, this could be like this part of the wrist, right on the bone, right? And then if you have a bladed weapon, the idea is the opposite. Now you're going for the soft areas of the body. Okay, so that's one general way of thinking. There's another. And the other one is there is a hierarchy because essentially what we go for is we defang the snake. And the idea of that is when the opponent is coming to attack you, you attack the attack, right? So if you remove the fangs of the snake, then it's no longer dangerous. So that's kind of our theory. So if you come from that idea, we like to attack the arms. That's one of the main things that come and attack you. So we take out the arms. We are arm killers. Okay. So that being said, like I said, there's a hierarchy on that. And the most ideal situation is to hit their hand with my weapon. That's the most ideal. Second is to go weapon to weapon. And third is hand to hand. And then fourth, which is the worst, and we want to avoid this as much as possible, is their weapon to our hand. Okay. Now this seems like common sense, but if you practice this, constantly thinking about this, it creates strategies, it creates tactics, it maps out your techniques. It's very, very important. So you should be constantly thinking about this all the time. And why is this hierarchy important? Hierarchy is very, very important because what it does is, you want to prioritize things. If you don't prioritize and you just have a whole bunch of techniques, to me, that's a clear sign of someone that does not know how to fight. If you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the reason why they were so successful in like early Vale Tudo, NHB, and stuff like that, in my opinion, is because they understood, they had a hierarchy system. And that was like the back mount is the best place you want to be. The mount is the second best, side is third best, and then comes the guard. So when you have a hierarchy like that, it prioritizes, you know what's up. You know what you're going for. You know what you're trying to avoid. So it's kind of the same idea as that. And the guys that only train in the best stuff, like when the guy punches, I'm going to do this and this and this, and that's all they train. These are, once again, guys that are not very realistic, people that to me don't know how to fight very well, because in a real life situation, you don't get your way all the time, especially if the fight is tough, or your opponent is tough, and the situation's difficult. You're definitely not going to get your way. That's why it's tough, right? So then it's the people that also train the situations that are not as good. So I know a lot of times Escrima people can get criticized going weapon to weapon. And yeah, for Filipino martial arts, we know we're supposed to be going for the hand. But the reality is you may not get it. And if you don't get it and you go weapon to weapon, hey, we're used to that. So we're cool with that. We're fine working under crappy situations. You know what I mean? So that to me is a sign of being realistic and being effective as well. Not always just working in your most ideal, your goals, but also being able to work in subpar conditions. So I'm going off on a tangent, but I hope that answers that question. So next is how much strength do I put in? This is very interesting question to me, and how much strength do you put in to your striking, whether it's empty hand or with the stick or with the blade. And what I have to say is there's always a balance between power, which is the strength that you're putting in, speed, and then last but not least is stamina. So let me say those three things. So how much strength, how much speed, and how much stamina. You always have to balance that out. And the way that you're going to do that in any style, this is not just Escrima, in my opinion, this is for every freaking style out there. The first thing you do is always stamina work. You go into the military, they use freaking guns, grenades, blades, tanks, helicopters. The first thing you do is conditioning. So stamina, that's number one, period. Okay. Number two, I would say, is strength. Work on putting in power. Okay. My real definition of power is strength plus speed. So you look at a big guy and you go, oh, he's going to be slow. Wait till you get into a fist fight with this guy. He's not going to seem that slow. You could be surprised, all right? Things are a lot faster than you might think, because you're forgetting one more component with power is explosiveness, So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that, but so the next thing after stamina is strength. Learn how to put strength. I don't care if you're a kickboxer, you're working on the bag, learn how to put that in there hit it with proper, it'll teach you the proper body mechanics. It'll teach you how to deliver the impact and even how to kind of receive it so that you're still in a balanced position. So definitely strength. Number three is speed. That's the last one. I think speed is the most technical. It's probably the hardest. And if you go with speed first, it'll mess up your form. So that's why I feel like speed should be the last. It's the hardest, all right? So technically the hardest. So those are the three things that, you have to constantly balance. Train them separately and then in a real life situation, you put it together, but then you can adjust depending on the situation. So depending on your opponent, depending on the situation, you might go, okay, now's the time for me to put in the power. Let me try to really hurt him. Or maybe now's the time where I need to just play safe and just use speed, okay? Or maybe this is a time where I need to make sure that I control my stamina and not burn myself out. So that all depends on the situation and what you have to control that. There's always a balance. I don't care what style, what system, what situation, riot, war zone, or a sport fight or backyard fight or whatever, always have to balance those three. Okay, so that's not just Escrima. And the next one, what are the basic combinations? Okay, so basic combinations, most basic for Escrima is high, low, low, high. Okay, the low part is very interesting for Escrima because it actually has commonality with wrestling. Because in wrestling, freestyle wrestling, you're attacking the legs. Well, guess what? In Escrima, we also attack the legs. Because we both attack the legs, that means level change. Okay, so we're using level change to our advantage. Changing the level can really mess up the opponent, and that is a very important part of Filipino martial arts. In fact, we dread it so much that in our footwork, I mean, you'll see constantly, Sensei Rick calls it the floating foot. I just learned it without having a name, but I constantly saw that bringing the leg back, that was just, you see a lot of Filipino martial arts guys that have learned it. Maybe they don't even know why, but you see them constantly bringing back that lead leg. Well, that's because of that level change. We fear it, okay? Because it could really, one shot, whether with a stick or with a blade, can take out your leg, take out that knee, destroy that kneecap, or it could slice that leg up and it could really hurt you. So up, down, down, up. The other one, getting into more specifics, the angles of attack form that you learn, depending on your school, depending on your lineage and whatnot, the angles of attack have a lot of meaning in there. There's a reason why the founders or the people heavily involved in the making and formation of the system chose these kinds of forms because, you know, they found something in battle that they tested out from their experiences. They found something and they created those forms and they were like, this form will teach you that. So it just depends. So when you get the form, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you get lots of repetitions. We all know that. One of the things is, let's say the 5 angles of attack. There's 12, there's 24, there's all kinds of different ones. 5 angles of attack created out of 5 moves. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you repeat that sequence over and over and get repetitions, right? Well, then you break it down and you could go, you start making combinations. So that's exactly what this question is about, making combinations. So you go 1 and 2 together, okay? And just repeat 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Now you can go 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, or 1 and 4, and then 1 and 5, okay? Then you could go 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 2 and 5, 2 and 1, okay? And then you could go 3 and 1, 3 and 2, 3 and 4, 3 and 5, you know. So you break them up like that. Just the reason why you're doing this, it's just math, right? You're making all these different combinations, but it's really to understand the form inside and out, and you're doing Lego with it, and you really want to understand the form. And as you do that, you'll start to understand the form better. And when you do, you'll go, oh, I think the founders of this particular lineage, this particular form, they specialized in long-range combat. These guys with this form, they really saw a value in fighting in medium range. Or these guys, their specialty was close range. You're going to kind of start to learn and be able to see that from the angles of attack forms. So, you know, the way that you guys train and the forms that are being passed down to you, those are all clues to me for you to be detective and figure out what are the best combinations, what did they value, what kind of attacking did they do. And once you figure that out, the combos, they're going to make sense, and you're going to know what kind of combos to go for in that system. So I hope that makes sense. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.